And I think, well, I can start presenting you little by little. Thank you everyone for joining us one more week in our webinar series for the SFL Masters, the Complutense SFL Masters. And it's my great pleasure today to introduce our three webinarists who are going to present together on translanguaging. And let me tell you a few words about them. Okay. Today's presentation represents a rare and productive convergence of theory, pedagogy, and classroom practice across multilingual educational contexts in Colombia and the US. First, let's mention the work of Andrés Ramírez, Associate Professor at Florida Atlantic University, whose research explores culturally and linguistically responsive pedagogies through the integration of SFL, genre-based pedagogy. Well, I always say pedagogy. I don't know why I always prefer that one to pedagogy. Pedagogy, translanguaging, and discourse analysis. Dr. Ramírez is the developer of the genre-based translanguaging approach, a multilingual extension of reading to learn and genre-based pedagogy that reconceptualizes guidance through interaction as translingual interaction around shared texts and shared experiences. He's currently writing a forthcoming book on genre-based translanguaging, where these ideas are being further developed into comprehensive pedagogic analytical framework for multilingual education. In many ways, Dr. Ramírez serves as the theoretical engine of this collaboration, bringing together state-of-the-art ideas from SFL, translanguaging, and legitimation code theory into a coherent vision for translanguage pedagogy. But theory alone is never enough. These ideas come alive through the work of Yuly, Andrea, González Mendoza, an English and Spanish language teacher and coordinator of a bilingualism program in a public school in Bogotá, Colombia. Her classroom functions as the living laboratory where pedagogic theory is tested, adapted, challenged, and refined through everyday interaction with multilingual learners. Her work ensures that genre-based translanguaging remains deeply connected to the realities of teaching, learning, participation, and equity in public education settings. The classroom in this collaboration is not simply a place where theory is applied. It is where theory is transformed through practice. Completing this dynamic collaboration is Cristian David Londoño Arroyave, professor at Universidad Antioquia in Medellin, Colombia, whose expertise in academic literacies, SFL, genre-based pedagogy, and tutoring brings an important reflective and analytical dimension to the project. His work carefully examines the relationship between pedagogic design and pedagogic enactment, helping organize and refine the connections between theoretical principles and classroom realities. In many ways, he represents the interpretive bridge between conceptual innovation and pedagogic implementation. Together, the three scholars show us theory generating new possibilities, classroom practice testing and reshaping those possibilities, and reflecting analysis strengthening the connections between them. As you will see, their work today not only introduces a framework for analyzing multilingual classroom interaction, but a principled approach for designing pedagogies that support literacy development, knowledge building, and meaningful participation across languages. So without further ado, I leave you in their hands. I'm going to leave for a couple of minutes to see if I need to fish some other people out of the other room, and I'll be back, and I'm sure you're gonna enjoy this webinar tremendously. So guys, the floor is yours.
Can you confirm
we can
that
see your screen very well?
You can see the screen well? Okay, that sounds good. Well, thank you very much for your introduction, Jorge. It's an honor to be here. We'll just begin with our presentation, and we hope we are very engaged and happy to talk more about this.
Well, so thank you very much. for your time, your generous attendance and listening to us. So we will be starting, like, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Today we'll be presenting a framework for translingual pedagogic design and analysis. What we aim to do in the next 2 hours is to explore how multilingual pedagogy that we propose, Professor Andrés, Professor Yuly, grounded in systemic functional linguistics and genre-based pedagogic principles, like particularly reading to learn, can be understood across different levels, and from how pedagogy is designed and to what happens in classroom interaction, and then to how lessons unfold over time, and how to understand them through a framework of analysis. Julie?
I think I'm not seeing the screen of the presentation, Andres. If you can close the.
Yes.
So before we move further into the framework, I would like to tell you briefly how this collaboration began, and everything started in 2023 when I traveled to the United States to work with Dr. Andres as part of my doctoral internship. And then later in 2024, I started to apply this pedagogy that you will see in the following minutes. And then we connected with Cristian, and through this work that we have been working on, we have been able to further expand the analytical dimension of this framework. So I hope you find this presentation very useful for you. Everything is based on the spirit that I have been developing together with Andres and Cristian in my own classroom in Bogotá, Colombia, as you will see. And I hope you can find very good tools of analysis for your own research.
Well, so we are trying to organize this presentation into two big parts. First one is everything is dedicated to a translingual setting. And in the first part, we would like to focus on translingual pedagogic design, specifically through what we refer to as genre-based translanguaging, or GT for short. It's not Gran Turismo, that's a video game, but we would like to have this, short. So we first go a bit abstract into SFL key concepts such as instantiation, realization, meta-redundancy. So to give a rich context of genre-based pedagogy and reading to learn in general, and then to move to GT in particular. In the second part, we will be moving into translingual pedagogic analysis, examining how these processes can be understood at the level of classroom interaction through teaching and learning exchanges. And for this, we draw on Legitimation Code Theory. And you will have the chance to practice and analyze translingual classroom interaction using some excerpts of Yuly's class. And we will see how this might work for you and your research. Yuly?
But we want to show you here, or what we want to show you here, is that the framework that we will show has been applied across different pedagogical contexts, as you will see. So the first one, Cristian will tell you a little bit more about this.
So we would like to connect the translingual contexts to the background of the work that Professor Andrés began to do and developed in the United States in a family literacy program with immigrant Spanish-speaking mothers, and he began to cultivate this field of early forms of this pedagogical approach. And it has been also taken up in different contexts in Colombia, specifically in rural classrooms, in which Escuela Nueva, which is a pedagogical approach in Santa Rosa, also has been working with different children, teachers in multilingual and resource-constrained settings.
And more recently, it has been implemented in communities of peace signatories in a rural area in southern Colombia, in Caquetá. What is important to know here is that these contexts differ significantly, yet they are all connected by a shared need to make pedagogy responsive to linguistic and social diversity. And centrally, this work is grounded in my own English as a foreign language classroom, as you will see, in a public school in Bogotá, in a working class neighborhood. I have been teaching in this context for over 15 years and have been working with genre-based translanguaging as a pedagogical approach over the past 3. I work mainly with beginner learners with limited exposure to English. As you will see throughout this presentation, this classroom has been a key site for developing, testing, I don't like that word, but I will use it here, and refining this framework in practice. The idea of translingual context is central to our work, and I would like to know maybe through the chat, if you have any ideas of what comes to your mind when you see or read this work, translingual context. Can you type any idea that you think when you see these two words, translingual context? I don't know, maybe just to give you a clue, diversity, many languages. I would like to read in the chat if it is possible. What comes to your mind? Code switching, okay. Is there any other thoughts or any ideas that you have in mind? More than one language? Yeah, that's great. Any other ideas, thoughts? Cultural diverse backgrounds? Okay, so maybe we can move to the other one. Well, school language versus home language. Yeah, there is a central point of this presentation, interacting in many languages at the same time. As we can see, a range of ideas are coming up. So all of them are very particular to the context that we are referring today. In fact, all of these perspectives are part of what we can understand as translingual contexts. What this shows is that translingual contexts are not limited to particular settings, but are shaped by how languages are used for meaning making in practice. Cristian, if you want to give some information about this video.
Yeah. So here we will be like taking a look at translingual context. Like we would like to show you a situation in which we would like to invite you to think about the ideas of, okay, what's translingual context? What's a translingual interaction? What could be characteristics of this kind of classroom environment interaction? And so what we got here is the final stage of a genre-based teaching learning cycle that began with model text, as you can see on the picture. Like there are hangers and everything. So students have worked through multiple texts in English. They develop different linguistic resources. They have produced their own texts. They have been put into action their own skills, their own knowledge about the genre, about the field. And Juan Pablo is this kid who's been like giving feedback in Spanish about the texts of other classmates, and he's trying to demonstrate understanding of the English text he's evaluating. He's trying to analyze the narrative structure of these texts, and in this case, like Spanish is used to demonstrate knowledge about the language that is being, materialized in the text. And this supports a metalinguistic interaction for deep engagement and connection with the genre, with the language, and with the meanings that are, materialized in these texts. So let's, we also, okay. I would like to point out too that this is a shared experience in the classroom in which this student and the rest of the students are talking around texts. trying to extend Halliday's concept of microsemiotic encounters, in which, we try to produce pedagogical interactions and relations between the students, between the texts, and among the meanings, and it becomes a whole metalinguistic experience. So let's take a look at the video.
Cristian, it is important to remark that this is the final stage of the genre-based teaching learning cycle. So as Cristian just mentioned, it is important here to remark that this is a feedback that is given by Juan Pablo, that is the name of the student that appears in the screen, and the feedback is given in Spanish, but the text that he is reading is completely in English, and it was written in English after a long process of kind of decoding the linguistic resources through a model text, and the final stage was an independent construction, and there is like an extra step where the students are evaluating other texts in the target language, in this case English. So if you want to play the video, Andrés, please.
Listo, Juan. ¿Me puedes contar qué estamos haciendo?
Estamos reproduciendo los cuentos de nuestros otros compañeros para calificarlos del 1 al 15. Somos como profesores. Así que hay tres bases: contenido, gramática y presentación. Tenemos que saber si están los puntos bien, y le damos un criterio de 1 a 5 de puntuación. Si el compañero tiene una puntuación excelente, se gana 15 puntos. Entonces estoy acá viendo el texto de mi amigo Luis, que está ahí.
El autor.
Estoy viendo que el cuento es de Nayin, es un león valiente. Él vive en las montañas. Él es gris y rojo. Él es inteligente y curioso.
Muy bien.
Un día Nayin vio un volcán que puso en peligro la ciudad. Llegó a la montaña. Las personas en allí y entonces Nayin los dio al tiempo.
Sí.
El resultado fue que Nayin salvó a todas las personas y animales, y ellos se sintieron valientes. Al final, Nayin y las personas sí, fueron felices.
Muy bien. Y sé que Luis, aquí está el autor, tomó aspectos de todos los textos, ¿viste?
Unas partes mías de mi propio texto.
Ah, ok.
Piensa si el texto le explica muy bien el lugar, el personaje, el problema. Nos cuenta quién es el personaje y qué pasa. Entonces le daré 4 puntos.
Ok.
Le faltó como algo en el final y algo en el resultado.
Estoy de acuerdo.
El siguiente punto es el discurso. Fíjate si el texto está organizado como una historia. Tiene las 3 partes del texto: el narrativo, orientación, presenta el personaje, y el lugar, complicación, cuenta el problema y lo que pasó, solución, muestra cómo se resolvió el problema. La orientación presenta bien el personaje y sus cualidades. La complicación está bien, que volcán en peligro en la montaña, y la solución es un poco así,
Muy corta, le faltó alimentarla más.
entonces le daré 4 puntos.
Ok.
Y la última parte es la gramática y presentación. Mira si el texto está bien escrito, se ve la organización de los párrafos. Claramente usa palabras importantes del tema y tiene buena ortografía y puntuación y letra. Veo que utiliza un poco de corrector y el texto le faltan como partes. Usa las palabras importantes del tema. Utilizó palabras de los 4 textos. Ya tiene una buena ortografía. Cada que tiene algo de ortografía, ahí ya poneré otro.
Muy bien.
Entonces todo sería 12 puntos.
12 puntos.
Entonces tenemos que leer de 1 a 15 textos y calificarlos de 1 a 5. Tenemos 30 minutos y cuando terminemos le tenemos que mostrar la profe y dar opinión.
Ok, todos los amigos que calificaron sobre 15.
Son los que la profe Andrea se va a llevar para mostrarlos a
So I want to say that every time that I watch this video, my heart just feels so happy because Juan Pablo, I mean, it's not only Juan Pablo, but all the environment that is in the classroom. And as you can see, this is a translingual context where the students are learning English, but we are using Spanish to support, in this case, and for this stage of the class, to support metalinguistic reflection and deeper engagement with genre and meaning. But throughout the teaching learning cycle, we are using Spanish purposefully to support the guidance through the acquisition of linguistic resources in the target language. So Andrés, if you want to continue.
So before really showing and describing our translingual pedagogic proposal in more detail, it is important to talk about the theoretical underpinnings, the principles that guide it. So translingual pedagogic design is conceived through an integrated conceptual triad leading to the idea of learning language, learning about language, and learning through language. You might recognize this from Halliday himself in a paper, 1993 paper. So the pedagogic design adopted here is based on a functional perspective on language that follows SFL. This is in contrast to dominant linguistic traditions associated with structural linguistics, for example, which have largely conceptualized language as an object of study, often privileging the abstract system over its use in interaction. Just to go to linguistic theory, so Sears' seminal distinction between lang and parole position the underlying system of language as the so-called proper domain of linguistics, lang. In contrast, instances of language use in context or parole were treated as very individual and therefore analytically secondary. This dichotomy actually transformed in the competence versus performance distinction popularized by Chomsky's transformational grammar following his teacher Zelix Harris. So generative grammar not only excluded semantics, but argued that the cognitive essence of linguistics was linguistic structures. So following this, the study of language focused primarily on an idealized cognitive system, largely detached from the contexts in which language was actually used. And pedagogy followed that. In other words, and to put it in some way, learning about language became prominent in some methodologies, learning language in others, but they are not really an integrated idea as Halliday had conceived it. This is because Halliday actually had a very different conception of what language meant. For Halliday, language was not a system versus instance idea. Language was meaning potential. So as shown, this is decline of instantiation, and this links individual texts with the overall structure of language. So to make this more specific, so we have on the concrete side is the decline continuum. We have the text here as an individual construction written by one of Yuly's students. Moving toward the more abstract categories, we have text types In this case, this text that we're going to show you in a minute is a descriptive report, and the most abstract on the left is represented by the system located at the other side. So a text is an instance of potential, but not only system potential, but of the reservoir of meaning potential of cultures. So a text is an instance of culture. For Halliday, Lang and Parole, system and instance, represented one, not two separate orders. And what is implied in this line is that system or potential and instance text are simply two viewpoints taken of the same phenomenon. So therefore, we should pay attention to both. The usual analogy that you might be familiar with is that of weather. That weather is an instance of the climate as a system. So for Halliday, learning was learning language, learning about language, and learning through language, not just learning about the system. Okay, this led to the development of a pedagogy to teach literacy in an integrated way, represented by genre-based pedagogy, and its third generation, reading to learn pedagogy. From Halliday's perspective, the purpose of pedagogic design is to lead students to integrate language learning with knowledge growth, as language is one of the most important vehicles for knowledge building. But let's remember that we're talking about translingual pedagogy design from a functional perspective. Okay, so go ahead, Yuly.
So from this perspective, a text is not only a string of sentences, as a text includes phases of meaning, such as episodes in stories or blocks of information in factual texts. For example, in this text about the school garden, which is a school garden in the school where I work, the text is organized into two stages, the classification and description, that represent the stages of a descriptive report about El Paraíso. These phases of meaning are expressed as paragraphs in writing. A sentence is not just a string of words. It is made up of word groups that present chunks of meaning. For example, the sentence El Paraíso is a vegetable and fruit garden contains 3 word groups that describe the main participant in this case. In the same way, a word is not just a string of letters. It contains one or more syllables, like garden. And syllables are made up by letter patterns that make up the spelling system.
More technically, in systemic functional linguistics, language is understood as a stratified or layer system, organized according to the principle of meta-redundancy. This means that patterns at higher levels of language are expressed through recurring patterns at lower levels. In other words, higher levels meanings are built from consistent patterns in lower level meanings and language choices. This is also called realization. Each layer both expresses the layer above, and it is expressed by the layer below it. So, for example, a genre is expressed through register choices in field, tenor, and mode, and register is expressed through discourse semantics, and discourse semantics is expressed through lexicogrammar, and lexicogrammar is expressed through sound of writing. Language is therefore organized as layers of patterns in pattern meaning, where each level is a pattern of patterns at the level of the level below.
Well, let's come back to the descriptive report that one student wrote about the school garden. Yes. So the text on the right is a descriptive report genre, and its purpose is mainly to describe and provide information about the school garden itself. But this genre is not made directly of vocabulary or grammar. Instead, the genre is realized through register patterns, specifically patterns of field, tenor, mode, and in terms of field, so we can see that um, the field is represented in words like plants, vegetables, fruits, regions of Colombia, food preparation. Yes. We also have tenor, which is informational, teacher-student, or informational writer-reader relationship, not personal, not argumentative. And the mode is written, which is an informational organization of is a information in organization of content in written form, which is informing readers, and it's organized into paragraphs that describe and classify. So the register of the text. The register of the text organizes the discourse semantic categories or phases into classification, description of products, origin of seeds, uses, evaluation, or conclusion. These are the discourse semantic patterns, not grammar yet, not grammar yet. There are patterns of meaning organization in the form of content and ways of doing it through the semantic discourse. And these discourse semantic patterns are then realized through grammar and vocabulary, such as a timeless present tense. We have el paraíso is, this school garden grows, the seeds come. There are relational processes like is or are. There are material processes too, grows, come, prepare, technical or specific nouns, vegetables, fruits, seeds, regions, meals. There are lists and examples such as corn, strawberry, potato. There are some general participants too. The seeds, the school garden with the products. And then we move to the lexicogrammar letter phonemes. And of course, like these patterns are expressed in the letters when written and phonemes when spoken. I would like to remark here a point, which is that throughout this pedagogical deployment and implementation, Professor Yuly, she works with her students in reading aloud and working on the lexicogrammar and phonology and phonemes of the words that are in the text too. And Andrés, Professor.
Um, so just to kind of summarize these complex things, we hope you can see that SFL, this SFL stratified model of language allows us to see this relationship clearly in a text like a descriptive report that we just analyzed. As we explained, the genre of the report is not directly composed of vocabulary or grammar, but it actually is realized by patterns of register, field, tenor, and mode expressed by agriculture and food production in terms of field with an informational, just as Cristian explained. And these register patterns are then realized through discourse semantic patterns, such as classification, description, etc. And then they go in a meta-redundant relationship, and then these are in turn realized by lexicogrammatical patterns. And this all illustrates the meta-redundant organization of language, where genre is a pattern of registered patterns, register is a pattern of discourse semantic patterns, and discourse semantics is realized through lexicogrammar. Go ahead, Yuly.
So when talking to teachers and practitioners about the complex systemic functional linguistic relationships, it is useful to use this metaphor. Components of language can be seen as a ladder, the one you see here, with complete texts and paragraphs as representing discourse, sentences, phrases, and words are representing lexicogrammar, and letters and sounds representing graphology and phonology. The latter also represents the reading to learn pedagogic sequence that begins with reading and ends in independent writing.
Obviously, to teach this very complex stratified system, the tasks must be broken into manageable units, sequenced in the curriculum in a way that lower level parts are comprehended in the context of higher level wholes, to be consistent with the theory. So the pedagogy is designed based on the understanding that language as a stratified, integrated meaning-making system, one that conceives text as more than just, as Yuly said, a collection of grammatical units as words, phrases, and clauses as exemplified. So this approach is called reading to learn. And here, as you can see, the theory on the left is connected to specific activities on the right that we are going to detail in a moment. So at the level of genre, we have the preparing for reading. Then at the level of register and lexicogrammar, we have detailed reading, and the lexicogrammar and graphology have to do with the third level of support, which is sentence making and spelling. And then we begin writing with joint rewriting here, and then finally writing a whole text in joint construction, and then in individual construction with a model that we adopt is the gradual release of responsibility that actually has a lot to do with Vygotsky and others. So here, the language ladder can be represented visually with this diagram on the right, as you can see. So from the left to top, to right on top, the diagram shows the text scale involved in each of the different reading to learn cycles. So we can see how it engages in a different level of language, starting with reading whole texts, down to short passages and sentences, and then up again with writing sentences, short passages, and whole texts. On the bottom, the diagram shows the learning focus. As we can see, instruction starts with understanding what the whole text is all about before reading, then understanding with depth and detail. Foundational literacy skills like spelling, punctuation, and all that are also learned in a context within this text, using joint rewriting strategies to come up with a new paraphrase text in joint construction. And this integrated reading-writing sequence of meaning-making supports students when they attempt to write independently. So you don't see here the independent writing, but this is because the teacher does a lot of the work here and then gradually release the responsibility to students in joint construction. So basically, to say it in a very, very simple way, the idea is I tell teachers this, they understand this. The idea at the very beginning is I do as a teacher, then joint construction, we do, connected, and later you do. So it's gradual release of responsibility in this sense. If we look at classroom interaction in detail, we find that traditional interaction has often been described through the initiation, response, evaluation pattern. It's also called initiation, response, feedback pattern. So it's also called IREF, if you are familiar with that. Basically, this pattern is that the teacher asks a question, the student responds, and then the teacher evaluates the answer. That's why it's called IRE, right? So while this structure has been widely used in classroom, in fact, is the most widely used one. It often assumes that students are already prepared to produce successful responses individually. So reading to learn expands this traditional IRE pattern into a richer sequence of interactional moves designed to help students succeed step by step. Instead of simply asking questions and evaluating answers, the teacher actually plans carefully and prepares students to participate successfully, as we can see here in the prepare and focus phases. So as shown in this figure, these interactional moves are organized into marginal and nuclear phases. And in the marginal phases, the teacher prepares the students the task and then focuses their attention on important meanings in the text. Students are then able to complete the nuclear phase highlighted there in a circle in the circle on as task. The task itself with much greater success. Finally, the teacher evaluates the responses and elaborates on these responses to extend and deepen knowledge. So, as we will see later in this presentation, genre-based translanguaging further extends this interactional structure by incorporating strategic language shift across these phases. In other words, movement between language is not just random or incidental. On the contrary, different languages can be used purposefully at different phases in the exchange structure that you see here to prepare meaning, to guide attention, to support participation, and deepen understanding across languages. So having laid out this theoretical SFL and reading to learn foundation, we are now ready to extend this framework to translingual pedagogic practice.
So first of all, we should say that translingual pedagogy design is conceived through Holiday's integrated conceptual triad, already discussed, of learning language, learning about language, and through language. But because we are talking about translingual practice, we extend such triad to language, about languages, and through languages to integrate language learning with knowledge growth, as language is one of the most important vehicles for knowledge building. In a translingual pedagogy setting, following a functional perspective design, language development and knowledge building develop simultaneously, collaboratively, and translingually.
The result of our collaboration, as Yuly learned more about genre translanguaging, she realized that her teaching practices were tacitly and unknowingly legitimizing unequal and hegemonic traditional foreign language practices that especially treated the first language of students as a barrier for learning English.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Through these experience, I began to realize something quite uncomfortable for me. I noticed that my own practice were in many ways reproducing the very things I was trying to challenge, particularly more traditional and unequal ways of teaching English, where students' first language was treated as a barrier rather than a resource. And this was not intentional, but it meant that I was in some ways reinforcing restrictive ways of thinking about language, which interestingly we that were quite far from ideas of inclusion, equity, and participation that I believe in.
So as we can see here, like we are connecting the dots with genre translanguaging framework that builds on reading to learn's robust architecture of equity, inclusion, pedagogic purpose by expanding the scaffolding available during the interactions to translingual practice. So the message that we would like to convey here is that genre-based translanguaging has also like a connection with certain principles like the colonial, genre-based, and translingual. So what does epistemic justice mean? For example, It's a framework that respects local knowledges, local wisdom, people as knowers, not only of content, but also of language, guidance through interaction in the context of a shared experience around the text, being the text the entry point for the pedagogy itself, and genre-based translanguaging, which is the second uh, level here. Um, Builds on reading to learn and particularly on its strong pedagogic architecture oriented towards equity, inclusion, and purposeful teaching. And what we do here is extend this architecture by expanding the scaffolding available during the interaction to include the purposeful use of more than one language. But this is not only a pedagogical move, it is also an epistemic one. So here we bring in the idea of epistemic justice. And by epistemic justice, we take it again and we try to recognize and validate the local knowledges, the local ways of making meaning, and importantly, recognizing students as knowers. And pedagogically, this means that learning is not about replacing what students already know, but about building on it through guided interaction. And this guidance happens in the context of a shared experience, like very often organized around text. And in this sense, the text becomes the entry point, and it's a space where meaning is jointly constructed from the very beginning and throughout the end of the cycle.
So next one. Yeah, what we are showing here is how the teaching learning cycle unfolds across a sequence of lessons, moving from preparing for reading to joint construction, and then to independent construction. At the same time, this progression is reflected across the different classes, where each lesson builds on the previous one. This is not a single activity, but a like a process in which students gradually gain control over both languages, in this case English, and meaning. In pedagogic terms, this follows a gradual release of responsibility, as Andrés mentioned before, where the teacher initially provides strong guidance, and this support is kind of a progression reduce, it allows students to become more independent. What is important here is that the learning is carefully staged, not only within a lesson, but across lessons, all the lessons. This allows students to repeatedly engage with the text, each time with increasing control and deeper understanding. At the end of the cycle, they can produce their own texts, building on their linguistic resources they have developed throughout the cycle. So up to this point, if you can click to the next slide, we have been talking about how language learning, learning about language and learning through language are integrated from a functional perspective. Now, what we want to do is to show how this actually looks in practice in the classroom. This begins with a shared text. This is one of the texts we work with, a descriptive report titled Jacobo and His Life in Bosa. As you can see, the text is carefully structured, beginning with a classification and then moving into different phases of description. Phases of description, sorry.
And of course, Jacobo, it's one of the students in Yuly's class in that fourth grade class was
fifth grade.
Fifth grade, yes. Okay. Well, actually, we'll give you a moment to take a look at it. Yuly, how did you come up with this text?
Well, we have like kind of a suggested curriculum in Colombia, and one of the main topics of that term was
Society.
No, I just forgot that. It was kind of how they can contrast the life of different kids around Colombia.
Oh, yes.
So what I did was to interview some of my students and of course ask the parents for the permission to use the stories of some of my students, and then compare that story to other kids in other parts of Colombia. So at that time I worked with Jacobo, but previously we have already worked with one story about Vito, and Vito was another kid, a 10-year-old boy as Jacobo, but Vito lived in La Guajira, which is another part in, I mean, of another cultural environment and setting in Colombia. So although the kids had the same age and they were in the same level, they have completely different conditions of life. So that's why we ended up with Jacobo, because we
Right.
have already worked with Vito, and we have to contrast to make
Right.
that contrast.
Jacobo is a city boy in Bogotá, and Vito is an indigenous boy in the northern part of Colombia, in La Guajira. Right. So okay. Cristian.
Thank you. So this background, this context is really important because it will give us, you know, the entrance to the first part of the teaching learning cycle. In the preparation for reading stage, the goal is to build a shared understanding of the text before working with it in detail. Students are introduced to the topic, the context, the type of text they will be reading, and the teacher guides their attention to key ideas, activates prior knowledge, connects the text with their own experiences, and if the content of the text allows it, which is why we're remarking the importance of selecting a very good text that represents this shared experience with students. And students are familiarized then with the genre, including purpose, overall structure. These all happens in first or shared language. Then the text is then read in English, and this is how in Genre-Based Translanguaging, the reading to learn nuclear and peripheral phases of interaction show in practice, which is this gray diagram we got here: prepare, focus, task, evaluate, and elaborate. And as we discussed earlier, like reading to learn expands the traditional initiation, response, evaluation, interactional pattern through marginal and nuclear phases. They provide additional support. Students participate. Students produce meaning with the teacher, between themselves. And the genre-based translanguaging like further extends this interactional architecture through purposeful translingual interaction. And the language shifts, which is a very important concept we need to bear in mind all the time. Like these become part of the pedagogic design itself. Yeah, like in many ways, genre translanguaging can be seen as a translingual expansion of the traditional initiation, response, evaluation, exchange. So once the students like understand the topic of the text, know how it develops, it unfolds, the process focuses on a different strata of language. Yeah, as we now are focused on sentences and keywords. Yeah, like more detailed. The purpose of this next cycle, detailed reading, is to identify keywords in each of the sentences that make up the text, and the steps that we have here on the infographic. Will give us will shed light on, okay, like the steps are designed based on the reading to learn marginal core phases of the interaction. The first language and the target language are used strategically across these phases to support students for meaning making, and the process starts with preparing the sentence, and then we move to reading the sentence, positioning the keyword, orientating question, affirmation, highlighting the word, elaboration, and for everybody's knowledge here, we would like you to address the examples on the right that are forms of guiding students towards the text and the detailed reading processes. So thank you. Andres, I believe it's you.
We want to further explain this in the context of a classroom, of Yuly's classroom. And we're going to focus on detailed reading. Remember that detailed reading looks at shorter passages. In this case, is looking specifically at sentences. And the idea is to understanding in depth and detail through the recognition, highlighting of keywords. Okay, so I invite you to read this, but Yuly is going to contextualize this video a little bit.
So what you are going to watch in the video is how detailed reading looks in classroom interaction. The following video illustrates how the teacher, in this case, me, and the students work closely with the text to make meaning and language visible. So this video is about an interaction that occurs when I was working with Jacobo's text. So you can play the video, Andrés.
Okay. The second level of the reading to learn teaching cycle is called detailed reading. This cycle allows all students to have a complete understanding of the text. In detailed reading, interactions begin to be translingual, meaning that Spanish and English are used in the same micro-interaction between the teacher and students. In this cycle, the teacher guides the students through the text sentence by sentence in order to highlight words or group of words. This process consists of 7 main steps that are performed for each sentence. The first 2 steps are preparing the sentence and reading the sentence. The meaning of the sentence is prepared so students can understand when the teacher reads. In step 2, the teacher reads the sentence. If students are confident readers, they can read aloud. Steps 3 to 6 focus on a specific keyword at a time. In step 3, the teacher gives students cues about the position of the keyword in the sentence, then asks an orienting question, affirms the student's response, and directs students to highlight the keywords in steps 5 and 6. In step 7, the teacher can elaborate by amplifying the meaning of the keyword by providing synonyms or antonyms, asking for students examples, elaborating on important grammar point, or practice pronunciation, as we will see later. These 7 steps guarantee a complete understanding of the text, sentence by sentence. In the next section, these 7 steps are shown in the context of a translingual lesson. The text used in this curricular unit is a biographical recount based on the life of Jacobo, a student in this class who is also a football player. The teacher uses the 7 steps to offer a detailed and thought-out reading of this English text.
Seguir ahora con la primera oración que está en la clasificación. Esta primera oración va de Jacobo hasta Bogotá. ¿Listo? En esta primera oración nos dice de quién va a tratar el texto, cuántos años tiene esa persona y en dónde vive. Básicamente son esas 3 cosas. Lo voy a leer. Dice Jacobo is a 12-year-old boy who lives in Bosa La Capela, Southwest Bogotá. ¿Listo? Vamos a mirar. Al inicio de la oración, at the beginning of the sentence, there is a name, and that name is the person that the text is about. What is that name? Jacobo. Jacobo, excellent. Let's say like Jacobo. Muy bien. Samuel and Tomás. Samuel and Tomás. His brother Samuel and Tomás. With his brother Samuel and Tomás. He lives with his brothers Samuel and Thomas. He lives with Otra vez. He lives with his brother Samuel and Thomas. Muy bien, ¿me lo puedo hacer poquito, Felitas? A ver, Sharon.
He lives with his brother Samuel and Thomas.
Muy bien. He lives with his brother Samuel and Thomas. Solamente. Excelente. He lives with his brother Samuel and Thomas. Excellent. Very good. Bravo. You already said
This same pattern of interaction continues across the detailed reading cycle, creating a culturally and linguistically responsive pedagogic design where students become increasingly confident to the point that the interactions are almost completely conducted in the additional language the students are learning. In the next section, the class is analyzing the last sentence of the leisure activities phase in Jacobo's biographical recount. He is recognized for his agility and speed. Notice how the teacher guides the interaction or the talk around text using the 7 steps in detailed reading and how this structure encourages active participation from students.
La última oración te está fácil. Ahí dice cuáles son las habilidades de campo. Entonces lo voy a leer en inglés. He is recognized for his agility and speed. In this part of the sentence, there are 2 qualities of Jacobo when he plays football. What are those 2 qualities that each has?
Agility.
Excellent. Agility. Very good. And the second one. Daniel? Speed. Excellent. Speed. Very good. Vamos a decir, he is recognized for his agility and speed.
He is recognized for agility.
Excellent. Very good. Luis Felipe.
He is recognized for his agility and speed.
Excellent. He is recognized for his agility and speed. Esteban.
He is recognized for his agility and speed.
Excellent.
Okay. So we are at the 1 hour specifically, and we want to invite you to just relax, go and grab coffee, tea, and please, in the meantime, we invite you to please write comments or questions in the chat. If you can, we would appreciate it. So we'll just, this is Yuly, very, very particular with the time. So we'll do that, and let's just stretch, and I hope you are enjoying so far. The next step is actually looking very closely and doing analysis. So we hope you continue to be here and be engaged.
You have to I think you have to reset the time.
Why?
Yeah. Oh.
So that we give them 5 minutes or what?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
I know.
Okay. There you go. No.
There you go.
Okay, there.
Yeah.
Now you have 5 minutes. Can someone tell us where you are right now in the world? I'm in Florida, South Florida, in the United States. How about everybody else? Oh, I know Teodoro is in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Good morning from Argentina.
Good morning, Argentina. Lucia, buenas.
Centro Oeste,
¿En
más
dónde?
cerca de Mendoza que de Buenos Aires.
Ah, okay.
Lucia is one of our master students. There are like 3 or 4 of our master students here today in the session. I saw Yasmin also somewhere before, an Argentinian living in Madrid. It's a holiday in Madrid actually today. It's Madrid's patron saint's day, San Isidro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we have David Munoz. He's actually from Colombia as well, but he's doing an internship with me for 3 months.
Okay.
Hello, David.
Look, somebody in Tunisia also said on the chat.
Tunisia, okay. Teodoro, I was talking about my doctoral student, Ligia Balbino. She's here in South Florida studying a doctorate program with me, but she's from Brazil. That's the one that I was telling you. Teodoro is from Brazil as well, Ligia.
I saw in the chat that we have somebody else in Madrid too, Thomas Mundel Morton, obviously not from Madrid, but apparently living in Madrid or staying in Madrid. Somebody else from Hanoi, Vietnam. Let me see the list of participants, of attendees okay, we also have some of our Chinese students I can see there from Nanfang University. We also have Rocío, who's also a master's student. She's from the Canary Islands in Spain, but she's in Rome now. I don't know, Rocío, if you're still there. We have Renuga and Bardini from Salem, India, also 2 students of ours from Sona College. And I think that's it from the for the masters, and the rest of people I don't really know.
We have Victor Noal, who's from Brazil as well, and
Yes.
he is part of the genre translanguaging group that we have across countries. Brazil is one of them.
Okay.
So Victor is there as well. Happy Teachers Day. Who? It's a Teachers Day?
Today is Teachers Day in Colombia, and then he's just commented that thank you for sharing this wonderful and inspiring work. I must leave now to work. Greetings from Colombia. Happy Teachers Day. Today is
Happy
Teachers
Teachers
Day in Colombia, and here in Korea is also Teachers Day.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yuly, why don't you tell people about why are you in Korea? Just very quickly.
Okay. Well, as a result of this work that you have seen in this presentation, I've been working in the creation of some ebooks with the final production of my students. So far we have created five, five ebooks with the production of my students. Well, three of them are with some of the productions, the final independent construction of my students. One of them is a guide that is created specifically for teachers, with where we compile some text, but it is more oriented to teachers. So there is a ebook, and the fifth one, the one what we have been working on is one that we have created with peace signatures in a collaborative work that we have been working since January. It's a different context. That book was not created with my students, but with a different context. So I presented the proposal to a kind of a scholarship of the Ministry of Education in Colombia. And the proposal, the winners of those proposals would get a scholarship to have a ICT course here in Korea. So there were like 218 proposals, and the one that I presented was one of the winners. So there were just 17 scholarships given to Colombian teachers. So I'm here because of the work and the result of the work that we have been doing with teachers. So I'm now, I just arrived yesterday. I traveled for 3 days and I arrived yesterday. So I kind of getting into this presentation because I kind of with the jet lag. But yeah, that's kind of the story. I'm so proud, not because of my work, but of our work, and especially because in this case, my students were the voices that just resonated in the award, because actually that was not my creation, was my students' creation. And with this, maybe I can also give some response to one of the questions that were in the chat. I think it was Jorge's, that says that if we have some kind of images, do you guys do anything with the graphic material of the text, such as images? So I don't know if that responds to the question, but we are creating the ebooks not only to compile the independent construction of the text, but because all the texts that are created by my students are serving as model texts to replicate in other contexts. And of course, those texts are also the ones that I use in every time that I teach another learning cycle. So this is what we call it in more practical terms when we just heard Cristian telling you about the principles of this approach, and one of those principles was kind of decolonizing monolingual practices when teaching English. So I think this is the more practical way to see this represented in the work of my students. So we
Yeah, as you
always
can see, the epistemic justice is embedded there because the texts that are individually constructed by some of the students are then used as model text by other students. So this is an organic way, a cyclical way in which we, the students, are actually producing the curriculum that they are studying.
And everything is aligned. I mean, we don't leave anything, apart. If there is a curricular guidelines in Colombia for teaching English, so we take that into account, but we also have the needs of the community and the local knowledges, and we also have this theoretical foundation that is systemic functional linguistic, and specifically reading to learn and genre-based translanguaging. And what you are going to see in the following minutes is not only those that alignment between those three parts, but also the way as we analyze the classroom discourse. That is what follows. I think what you are going to see is more practical. I think we don't have time to develop everything, but at least it will give you the tools for you to maybe to do your own research or teaching practice. So I think
Yeah.
we can continue.
So we go to the part 2, which is the analysis. Like what do we do with this analysis? Of course, we can see that classroom discourse is complex. And so imagine translingual classroom discourse when you have different codes coexisting. I mean, that's even more complex. But the good thing about this is that we figure out a way that through SFL, that it gives us the possibility of actually doing this. So the idea here is that if we make effective language teaching processes visible for teachers, many more students can be successful and reach high academically. So do you remember when I was talking about decline of instantiation? So on the one side, we had a text, the text of El Paraíso, and the other one, we had system. Well, if it turns out that the teacher's pedagogic discourse is also a text, okay? And on the other side, we have a potential system. So what I have created is a system to actually look at this in detail, at the translingual teaching learning exchanges. And this is the system. It looks like a system for SFL specifically. So of course, if you look at from left to right and bottom to top, we have teaching learning exchanges and that are monolingual, of course, but we are not concerned with that. We are concerned with multilingual teaching learning exchanges. Okay, so in the multilingual teaching learning exchanges or translingual teaching learning exchanges, we have two options: the option of switching or the option of sustaining. In terms of sustaining, what we mean by sustaining is sustaining in the first language or sustaining in the target language. What this means is that the unit of analysis, which we show you the 5 phases of reading to learn interaction, that's the unit of analysis, and that's when we have the sustaining. But also we have the possibility of switching, and the switching could be the first language first. That's why it says FLF, first language first, or target language first. Okay, so it's in the switch is either the first language first or the target language first. There's a switch, but there's either first language first or target language first. And there's also another variable. We also have the variable that is equal, means it's a translation, concurrent translation. So when you say very good, muy bien, or something like that, that would be coded as concurrent translation. However, many of you said code switching. And code switching is not a translation. It's when you start in one language and you actually finish the sentence or the thought in another language. Okay? It could be in the first language first, and then you complement with the second language. So basically, all these are all the alternatives that teachers have in a translingual teaching learning exchange. Okay, so now you can see how we could actually connect this with actual interaction in Reading to Learn, because as you saw, the 7 steps, for example, some steps are in one language, some steps are in the other, some steps are in one or the other. So that is very complex, and this system network allows us to actually manage that complexity. Okay? In order to give you even more help with this, take a look at this chart. Okay, so we have the F equals T. It's translation from first. So the first language with target translation. So for example, she says, ¿cuál es la palabra? Which one is the word? So we would code that as F equal T. Okay? Give me some thumbs up or something if I can slow down or something. Anyway, and I cannot, because I am sharing the whole screen, I cannot see your chat, but maybe Yuly and Cristian can help me. Okay, so then we have F plus T. That means first language plus target language. Language switch without translation. There's no translation. So for example, you have, ¿cuál es la palabra? Remember to look in the first sentence. So there's a switch here, but ¿cuál es la palabra is not translated. You see that? Okay, so what it says is first target, first in the first language, and then the sentence continues. So you get the idea. I'll give you just 30 seconds to continue looking at this, and please ask any question right now, because remember, we're going to ask you to actually analyze some classroom, Yuly's classroom interaction. So it's important for you to understand this. But anyway, we're going to do it together first, because we follow the Reading to Learn cycle. So we're going to do before you do it yourselves, we're going to do it together. Is there any question or comment on the chat or not? We can proceed.
I want to highlight a comment that it was written some minutes before, because it is totally aligned with what we are going to explain. And Lucia mentioned that I really like this pedagogy because it acknowledges something that happens in the EFL classroom, which is the use of L1. Having been trained as an EFL teacher in Argentina with the idea that L1 use is like a devil. Yes. I like to have this theoretical framework to systematize the practice in a way that makes sense and works.
Absolutely. It's Lucia, this is exactly what we're trying to do here. So I'm just so excited that you say that, because this is exactly, it took me 25 years to realize this, that it doesn't make any sense not to use the whole repertoire of students. The key is not to use it, of course use it, but how? The key is systematically, right? Doing it. And we're trying to show you both theoretically and practically through the teaching of Yuly Andrea is this precise specific point. So I'm so glad that you get this, and absolutely. So okay, so let's take a look at this. Yuly, since you are here, why are you not the teacher? Like, just go be the teacher right there.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Please, please.
Regarding the first two lines in the previous chart, I don't think it's very clear to me the difference between target with translation and target plus first with target, first plus target.
Can someone else explain that if you understand it?
Like reading the example, first like is it because you're adding a comment?
Yeah, I think so, right? Like the first option, you just translate what has been said previously, while the second option, it's another kind of wording. So, ¿cuál es la palabra? Remember to look in the first sentence. So it's like a tip for how to answer the first question. It's not exactly just repeating the first question in the
You see,
target
Lucia,
language.
exactly. Thank you,
Okay.
Theodoro. You see that there's no translation involved.
Okay.
Yes. The unit of meaning is in two languages, but it's not a translation. So that's why we call plus.
Okay, the plus target involves like an explanation or a comment, an elaboration or whatever helps students.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Okay. Thank you for asking that. So
thank you.
So Yuly, go ahead. And who wants to be student one at the down there?
Let me see. I think. Okay. So in the preparation of the sentence, if you want, maybe, well, I don't know who is going to be the students. I will say in Spanish, la oración nos dice en qué academia de fútbol entrena Jacobo y cuál es su posición en la cancha. Lo voy a leer. So the translation would be, I said that in Spanish. So the sentence tells us what soccer academy Jacobo trains in and in what position he plays. I'm going to read it. He trains in the Millonarios Academy and plays as a left back in the under-11 team. La primera palabra está al inicio de la oración. I said that in Spanish, so in English, the first word is at the beginning of the sentence.
Okay, let's look at the coding here. As you can see up there in the first line where it says language exchange, it is schematic, right? So we have F followed by T followed by F. Do we understand that? By looking at the data, do you understand that? Yes, okay, good. I see that Jasmine is saying yes. Lucia, what about the rest? Give me something so that we know that we are that you are with us. Teodoro, we're good?
Yeah, because it's English, Spanish, or Spanish, English.
Thank you,
Spanish.
Thomas.
That's it, right?
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, let's continue with the next one. And Teodoro, you're gonna be student one, right? Okay. So
Okay.
be ready. Okay, go ahead, Yuly.
So I said actually, ¿qué es lo que hace en la Academia de Millonarios? What is that word? What is that he does in the Millonarios Academy? What is that word?
Brains.
The student.
Okay.
Very good, excellent.
Okay.
So then it continues, of course, and then you continue. So right here, as you could see, the switch is in parentheses, and maybe someone that knows more math can help us later on. But anyway, for now, this is okay for teachers. I hope it is. We're good? We're good so far? Okay. Thank you. So let's do some joint analysis, and this is going to be exciting. Right now, we have an exercise for you that we have prepared for you online. So what we're going to do is to actually open it up. Yuly can share that. Hold on a second.
Hold on a second. Give me just a second. I have so many windows open.
I'm gonna try because the
I
idea
just
is
share the link to the handout where you can have all the information that you just shared. Maybe because I know there is a lot of information, but you can find everything in the handout that I just shared in the link. Okay.
okay. So that's the handout. What we're gonna share now is the exercise so that we can do it online. Each of us will do it, and then it'll give you. Okay.
Yeah. So this is practice 1. We are going to do it all together. So it says read each of the elements of the interaction for each excerpt, identify the type of language shift being used, and select the corresponding code, which the ones that Andrés just explained, but we put it in here. So as this is kind of a joint exercise, maybe you can tell me what should that put in each one of the excerpt of the class. So in the first one, let's look at this one. It says, vamos a seguir ahora con la primera oración que está en la clasificación. I'm going to read it in English, but I said that in Spanish, okay? We are now going to continue with the first sentence that is in the classification. This first prayer goes from Jacobo to Bogotá. In that first sentence, he tells us who the text is going to be about, how old is that person, and where he lives. Basically,
yeah, the prayer there means
the
sentence. Sorry. Anyway.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
In those 3 things. So we have this option. What should I mark? Let me just put it bigger.
Yeah.
F.
F. Okay, someone says F.
Okay, F. Maybe you
Yes.
can say it in the chat or just open
So
your
F
microphone.
is maintains this change, the first language. By the way, we have the link here so that you can do it later by yourself. Okay.
So let's mark F. I don't know if there is any other idea. Okay, just let's leave that one with F. It means that maintains in the change in the first language. So let's look the second one, which is in the time when I'm reading out loud. So I said, Jacobo is a 12-year-old boy who lives in Bosa La Alameda, Southwest Bogotá. So which one of these options can we mark? Let me just put it bigger.
We have a question in the chat. Lucia accidentally closed the app. What's the link to the activity shared?
We're not sharing the link yet. We are doing it together.
We are doing it together, and then we share another link to do it independently. But we can share this one too.
Yeah, of course.
So we are doing it all together, and then you will have the chance to do one independently. So this one, you say, Jacobo is a 12-year-old boy who lives in Bosa La Alameda, Southwest Bogotá. So if you want to answer by the chat, so yes. I think you said
so Thomas
T.
and Ligia said T. Victor said T. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, we'll continue.
The other one is said, I said, listo, vamos a mirar al inicio de la oración, the beginning of the sentence, there is a name, and the name is the theme that the text is about. What is the name?
This one is it's more, right? So what do you think? Why don't we talk also, if you can talk, and so that we can see what you're thinking?
Thank you, Jasmine, for sharing the screenshot.
Oh, yes, of course. So Victor says F plus T. Ligia says F plus T.
F plus T, yes.
F plus T, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we have F, first language, and then T. there's a name,
Agree, F plus
etc.
T.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is not code switching. Sorry, this is not translation, right? This is what we call code switching. Very important. Good.
Let's move to the next one, which is easy. Jacobo, excellent.
What is
I
it?
think
Well, of
Just
course,
go-
this would depend on how you would classify the language of Jacobo.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking that.
But
Yeah,
of course,
well,
Mhm.
yeah,
yeah.
but I think we could
maybe if
say,
she said Jacob.
Yeah.
well,
And they
but-
say Jacob.
So yeah,
yeah,
but maybe just target language, right?
that's target. That's right.
And this one. Let's highlight Jacobo. Muy bien.
T plus first. T plus first.
T plus
Yes.
F. Okay.
And then in elaborate, which is more the pronunciation practice.
Let's practice pronunciation. Repitan después de mí, Samuel and Tomás. Let's just see. Let's practice pronunciation. Repitan después de mí.
T plus F.
T plus F.
Yes.
T plus F.
Yeah.
And I said Samuel and Tomás, his brother Samuel and Tomás. So in that case, from there, everything is in the target. So I think I just gave them the response.
That's okay. I think now we could do that.
And after that, after repeating what you just watch in the video, I said, a ver, ¿quién lo puede decir solito? Let's see who can do it alone. So that is in target first.
What is
what
it?
should I mark?
F.
F. Yes.
F. Yes, Victor. With the full version of the first one, that would be in the first, what it says, elaborate, let's practice pronunciation, repitan después de mí, Samuel and Tomás. That would be T plus F and T. He's asking about the first question, the first sentence. And the last one, I said, muy bien, he lives with his brothers, Samuel and Tomás. So what would be muy bien?
First.
Yay!
Let's
We did
see.
it.
This is what you are going to do in some minutes, and I think with this exercise, you just click on finish, and then you check if everything is correct, and you got 10 out of 10. This is the joint version of the exercise, but we are going to give you some minutes to do it yourself. You don't have to share your results. We just want to share this with you just to make sure that you got this. So let me just look for the link.
Yeah. While she's doing that, the links for the practice will be on the chat. And while she's doing that, I'm going to share so that we can continue to the next phase. Okay, so we'll see here. We did that. That's wonderful.
So
okay,
we are going to the practice.
Okay, so we did that, and then you do this individual analysis. In the interest of time, we're going to just leave it there for later. You can contact us, or you can continue. But okay, so we now want to shift gears a little bit because we can now move to the second part of the analysis, which we're not gonna try do today fully, but of course, as we just saw, it is important to know if language shift is systematic and principled. of course, in the micro interactions. However, it is not enough to know whether language shifts are happening. Of course, they are happening. The key question is whether these shifts are systematic and pedagogically principled across lessons. So we have within lessons, of course, in micro interactions, but what about across lessons? What happens across lessons? In other words, if we look at only at the individual teaching learning exchanges, the unit of analysis is too micro, and it does not allow us to see the broader pedagogic trajectories. Where is this going to? Like, is this good instruction? Okay, it's shifting, but what does that tell you? Is it good? So for that, this is why we draw on legitimation code theory, and more specifically on an analytical tool I developed with Dr. Carl Mayton from the University of Sydney, to examine how translingual interaction is organized across lessons, not in micro interactions, but across lessons. So what you're seeing here is a translation device on the right and the Cartesian plane on the left that tells you about autonomy, the autonomy dimension of legitimation code theory. Have you ever worked or heard about legitimation code theory? Please put, it says, oh, it should say, well, let's just put yes or no, or I'm familiar or not familiar on the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the...
Okay.
So people are more
Yes.
familiar? Or...
Thomas said yes. Lucia, I'm familiar.
Okay.
Lilian, no familiar, no familiar. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Well, there are different levels here. Go ahead, Cristian.
Okay. So legitimation code theory is a theory. It's a sociological framework. Yes. Professor Carl Mayton has developed this framework and has like a spirit of trying to help us understand how knowledge, power, and practices are organized and what gets valued or legitimized in different contexts. In this case, classroom context of genre translanguaging features. And for us, what is particularly useful about LCT is that it allows us to look beyond the individual classroom moments and to understand patterns across teaching and learning. In other words, like it helps us answer questions like what kinds of knowledge are being privileged, how are languages being used, how are the languages being valued, how the patterns in the use of language and interactions developed over time within lessons and across lessons. Very briefly, legitimation code theory works with different dimensions to analyze practices, and we will be like looking at dimensions like specialization, semantics, and autonomy. That are like these three have been more developed. And for example, specialization focuses on the relation between knowledge and knowers. That is what is valued more, the knowledge itself or the attributes of the person. Semantics looks at how meaning shifts between more concrete and more abstract levels. In other words, how context and complexity are managed over time. And autonomy, which is our focus today, which is a dimension that examines the relations between contents and purposes, how different elements are connected or kept separate in the pedagogic practice. Yuly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as Cristian mentioned, in this study, we focus on the autonomy dimension of the legitimation code theory. Just to give you and to summarize, to this point, we have been worked on two different kind of analysis. They are connected. So the first one is the one where we just developed through the exercise what we just all together did. And this one is another kind of analysis that is linked to the previous one, but you can do it separately. So just to give you a bigger idea of how this work, I this my classroom, or just the fact of teaching a class in English, is a social practice. And in any social practice there is a purpose and a content, and that is what we analyze through the autonomy dimension of legitimation code theory. I think we don't have time to expand in the theory. I think we should focus on the analysis and give you the tools that you need to proceed to do future research and analysis using this tool, so we can move forward. So basically, what you need when you do an analysis using legitimation code theory, and specifically the autonomy dimension, is a Cartesian plane where you can see how contents and purposes are related. This is something that, as Andrés mentioned, was developed to analyze English as a foreign language classes. It was initially made by Andrés and Carl Mayton. And what you need is not only the Cartesian plane, but also a translation device that what you can do with the translation device is to put practice and data into, is to translate data into theory. So that's basically the function of the translation device. If you can move forward, Andres.
Yeah, so you can see that the vertical axis tells us about contents. Are they target or non-target? And the horizontal is the purposes. Are we purposes or not? Are target purposes or not target purposes? You can read about this here in this article that is in review right now. Um, and it explains all that in the context of the original context of the family literacy with mothers, with immigrant Spanish-speaking mothers here in the United States. That's the data we used. However, we are going to use it for Yuly's class. So basically, what we came up with is with these 4 codes, and for example, non-target purposes for non-target contents is in Spanish for other purposes. So as you can see, that is non-target contents and non-target purposes. But you also have in Spanish, but for learning English, meaning that we have non-target contents, but target purposes. We also have on the top right quadrant this what we call another code, which is it's in English. So the teacher is using English for learning English. So these right here, we have target contents for target purposes. And finally, we have a target contents in English for other purposes. So this gives us all these ideas. So here, basically, on contents is English, non-contents or non-target contents in Spanish. Anything that is in Spanish will be non-target in terms of positional autonomy for learning English and for other purposes. This gives us 4 codes, as you can see here. So the sovereign code, the exotic code, the introjected code, and the projected code. And this is exactly what Yuly was referring to. The translation device makes us explicit how contents or positional autonomy relate to purposes. So what you see on the right here, on the right, you have weaker or stronger. So this is not either or, it is a strength, right? So we have stronger or weaker positional autonomy. Then we have the indicators here, which are in English, engaging in English about the English language, for example, grammar, intonation, etc. And also we have examples from data on the right. It is important to know that you can read a translation device from left to right or right to left, from analytical ideas to data, or from data to analytical ideas. So the autonomy analysis that we want to propose here is in Yuly's class. So we want to ask you, what is the content and what is the purpose in Juan Pablo's excerpt? Think about it.
When he
In
was giving
Spanish?
feedback. Mhm.
In
In
Spanish?
for learning English.
So you say in
Yeah.
Spanish for learning English.
Mhm.
What is he really doing? What is the main thing that he's doing?
He's assessing.
He is assessing. Look, when you say he is assessing, he is evaluating, that means that he's not learning English necessarily. So we would code this as in Spanish for other purposes. However, that doesn't mean that it's not important, right? Jasmine, this is absolutely important. This is wonderful that the student do that. So let's not think for a moment that just because you are in Spanish for other purposes, that it is not useful. Okay? This is what we want to emphasize. Then of course, we have in Spanish for other purposes here. So the content will be in Spanish and the purpose will be for evaluating. Okay? But take a look at this. We're not going to play the video because we don't have time. But take a look at this. Yuly, why don't you explain this?
Well, this was at the beginning of the teaching learning cycle, and I was trying to introduce a text, and I was telling my student what that text was meaningful, because as I just said, I reused the text or use the model text of the independent construction of my students as new model texts. So I was explaining my students why these texts were meaningful. So at that point, I was not doing it for learning English, neither in English. So what code was that? And that doesn't mean that was not important in the class. It was important to tell at that point to my students that the text was that was written by one of my students, but it was not important for the purpose of the class. So what code do you think that interaction was, of that part of the class was? I did everything in Spanish. I forgot to mention that. I was telling my students that the text was meaningful in Spanish.
So when she tells you that, it's definitely on the lower quadrant, right? But then what about the two?
Maybe it is for learning English because you are reinforcing in a way some or encouraging some confidence in them, which
Yes.
impacts the learning of the language.
Absolutely. But that is not for learning English. That is for motivating. So you see what I mean? Like what right here, we have a very specific way, very delineated way to actually show how data can be in one quadrant or in another. So sorry to to tell you, like that, but okay,
No, it's fine.
I feel that this is very important because this gives us a very solid way of identifying what is target and what is non-target. Okay, look at this. This is the last part of that unit. Why don't you explain that?
So at the end of the unit, because we were talking about healthy food, and the model test was about like a fruit market that is located 2 blocks away from the school. And at the end, I just told them, oh, we were talking about this fruit market. I just went by that market and I bought some golden berries. So let's all eat golden berries and just finish the class.
And
So
enjoy.
that was, and enjoy the golden berries. So I was not teaching them English. We were not talking about the text. We were just eating golden berries. So that was not for the purpose, neither for the content of the class, but it was important because at the end of the class they feel relaxed, they connected to the supermarket we were talking about, you know. So it doesn't mean that exotic, or in this case the green code, is not important. It was really important, but during the class I move between all the codes just to make a good structure and to guide my students through the construction of the meaning based on the model text.
So now she's actually looking at what we call autonomy tours. So what this is useful for is that is to actually give you a trajectory of what she did across the lesson. So take a look, Yuly. So at the very beginning, she started with teacher. Yuly started in Spanish to engage students personally with the text and motivating them to write, as you were saying, Jasmine, right? So motivating them. So that was PA minus, RA minus. Then she moved into the second moment where the teacher keeps using Spanish but strengthens the purpose of the lesson because she began to scaffold the text structure. Now it's about the text that they are going to read. Then in number 3, she actually goes into rapid movement between Spanish and English. You saw that in detailed reading, right? Like when she goes the T plus F or F plus T, etc. Like that goes back and forth. But the students actually remain in the sovereign code, and then they return to non-target contents for non-target purposes as students enjoy the golden berries that the teacher brought for them. So we wanted to show you this because this is very useful across lessons. So we have this join an individual analysis. It's on the chat now, Yuly.
Yeah, I see the chat, but I think we are running out of time, and I want to leave some time for
we ran out of time, but we were. I'm sure you can understand that this was very ambitious, very new. We hope you have a lot of questions and that your brains are like, or that you're already thinking, my God, I can do this for that, or I can use this for my study or to analyze my own teaching, Victor, etc., Ligia, etc. So we just want to leave you with that. I'm sorry, we're just right now at the cusp of the 2 hours, but we tried our best, and we're here with this. Please, I'm sure that Jorge can follow up with the handouts or the or if you want, you could actually put all of them, your emails, especially the people that are not in the masters, in the chat, so that we can send you all this material. The handout, we have a handout, and we also have the exercises, the 4 exercises that you can check if you really understood this.
LCT, as Thomas said, is a great tool for analyzing EFL classrooms. I'm sure you can use it in any other context. It's not only for analyzing classes. You can use LCT for analyzing music or dance, any topic in any classroom. But you will see in more practical terms through the exercise that I just sent in practice 3, how it works. And it is a really great tool for making visible some things that sometimes you are not aware, especially when you are teaching. So in that case, to me, it has been a very important tool to realize how much English or Spanish do I have to use, how my students respond to that, how appropriate are the activities that sometimes I consider were exotic or were not good to apply in the classes. So I just suggest you to do the homework if you want to, at least to practice and to find the logical behind this theoretical framework.
I wanted to tell you that Andrea, in her doctoral thesis, actually used autonomy to analyze the practices of some teachers in Colombia, and she English teachers, and she actually realized the problem is not the exotic code, as you could see, can be very useful, very motivating, very good. However, the problem is when 80% of the time you are there. With 80% of the time you are eating golden berries in the English class. That's the problem. So, or when you are only motivating them, or in the case of Yuly Andrea, she actually talked about the fact that they ended up with a coloring exercise that took a lot of the time in the English class. Is it important? Sure, but it minimized the possibilities for students to practice. So that's why it's so important to actually be very mindful of how much time, what are the trajectories, etc. So any comments, any questions?
Mohammed just said, I'm not familiar with LCT framework and it looks great. It is great. Thank you so much. I will share my doctoral thesis. It is in Spanish, but there are many things that I'm sure that you can understand or translate because I explain in very practical words how it works. And I presented 3 chapters with the use of different data using LCT with the autonomy tours, autonomy dimension. So if you can take a look, I will share the thesis through the chat. And I don't know if you have more questions, any comments.
One of the things that I wanted to tell you is that we need to, because we are teacher educators, we need to focus more on the teacher's discourse. When you try to analyze too much, then it becomes very difficult because we're trying to go to actually create pedagogy. So then that's why we focus more on the teacher. That doesn't mean you cannot focus also on the students, but it's important to focus on the teacher because we are focused on the pedagogy.
Well, Andrés, Yuly, Cristian, thank you very much, very much for this wonderful webinar. Muchas gracias a los tres. T plus F. And
there you go.
I'm sure all of our students and additional attendees have learned a lot. It's indeed a pity that we don't have more time to discuss things, but look, feel free to send us any material, as Yuly was saying. I could maybe like make it available through, where through the master's website where the information about your webinar is. Okay, and I'm sure we're gonna find more ways to collaborate through our either SFL Masters or the training courses online at Complutense, so that because I've seen that our students and attendants really have shown interest in the wonderful material you have presented and this methodology, which I'm sure is going to offer a lot of satisfaction to L2 instructors. Okay, so thank you very much again. Everybody have a great morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are in the world.
Yes, it's all over the place.
And we'll be in touch. Okay.
Thank you very much. If you want to read more about any of this, genre translanguaging, or even the article I referenced that I did with Carl Mayton that is in review, all that is available in ResearchGate, in Google Scholar, in academia.edu. So you just look for my name and you'll can find anything there, or you can contact me and I will be very happy to send you any material. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great. A big thanks to you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank
Care.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.